Welcome back to Racing Royalty. This is the show where we celebrate only the highest achievers in the sport of horse racing. And to launch episode 2, where better than here at Juddmonte, and in particular alongside this horse, the immortal Frankel, statuesque alongside me, but of course so brilliant, so athletic out on the track, and for many, be they assessor or indeed racing fan, the greatest they have ever seen. He burnt so brightly through his 2, 3 and 4-year-old campaigns, and we're about to relive his great achievements with somebody who knows him best.
Out the bushes, Frankel, he's 15 lengths clear. Frankel has destroyed them from halfway, an amazing performance.
He's winning the Guineas, you know, we've both followed racing for years. You just don't see that, you just don't see it.
An awesome sight to watch.
The turbo he's got is unbelievable, you know. I've never sat in anything like him.
Frankel still leads. Camford Cliffs just being shaken up in second place now, and Frankel is pouring it on from Camford Cliffs. Rear de la Plata back in third and Russell. Oh, this is a brilliant horse. Frankel's pulling clear of Camford Cliffs. It's inside the final furlong. Frankel extending. Camford Cliffs is drifting to the stand side, and Frankel is too good. The freak. Frankel wins for Sussex.
I mean, he's the best horse I've ever seen. I think you compare Blushing Groom at his best and Shergold.
2 quality horses are made to look mere mortals as Frankel remains unbeaten and wins the QE2.
Teddy, a few years on, is Frankel the journey still as brilliantly clear as it was then?
Undoubtedly. I think where I was personally so lucky was that I was old enough and I'd been around enough to know that when this horse came into the life of Juddmonte, we had a good idea anyway that this was going to be a one-off. I didn't want to wake up and think, I missed that. We really had huge expectations for him. It was always difficult with Frankel when people say, well, after he'd won so comfortably, and people would say, well, we were expecting that. And it would have been arrogant to say, well, actually, we were expecting him to do it a little bit easier. And we truly were, if the truth be known.
When was the first day you were sort of comfortably in yourselves aware that this was well above average?
He was one of those horses, he just didn't take a backward step. He was a very nice foal. But if you'd said to me, this is the greatest living champion of all time, I'd have gone, not sure about that.
Put some water in it next time.
Yeah, exactly. But when I remember walking around the fields and the paddocks, looking at the yearling colts with Rory Mahon, who managed the farm there and broke him in, I just said, what's that colt there? And he said, that's the Kind colt. And I went, and it was a mixture of delight, excitement and relief. Delight and excitement that he'd done so well, and relief that we managed to pick him. Luckily, we were first and Cornwall had the second pick. And so it would have been a life-changing thing had we gone the wrong way. I think from then on, everything he did reinforced what we had all hoped and expected. He was named, I want to say it was the end of March, probably, of his 2-year-old career. Okay. Prince Carl had always used to like to name his what he thought was the best, the last. He always wanted good strong names.
And it carried weight, that name. Let's not forget. It really did.
Yes.
There was a profound sort of resonance at that point.
Yeah, there was. Frankel was the alignment of the stars in every way. The death of Bobby when Frankel was a yearling, and Henry's resurgence. If it had been 2 years later, Henry might not have been well enough, or 2 years earlier, he might not have been going well enough.
Just very quickly on the first day, Friday the 13th, we saw earlier, Friday the 13th of August 2010, beats a very well-regarded Galileo colt from across town, Nathaniel, star of a future Juddmonte star and Enable, of course. You weren't there, though?
No, I was in Deauville with Prince Khalid. And I'd love to say that I watched the race with him, but I was too terrified and too nervous. So I watched it in my hotel room in the Royal at Deauville. Yeah. With my wife, and she said, "Why are you so nervous?" And I said, I did hop down about 3 floors to find Prince Carly's room, and then we managed to get excited. And I can hear Derek Thompson's voice.
Here they come now in the last furlong and a half, and here comes the favourite Frankel looming up alongside Nathaniel, and Frankel moves well. Frankel looms up alongside, he's still on the bit, he is brick. Nathaniel pumping away, but still upside. The 2 market leaders settle down to battle it out. It's Frankel on the far side. Now what has he got left? There's not a lot left, or is there? Frankel is coming away, or is it? Frankel's coming away to win it now. Wins nicely in the end. Nathaniel in second.
Did you ever see Henry Cecil's interview on Racing UK, as it was then, in the pouring rain with Stuart Machin on our channel afterwards, when, you know, asked the question, and Henry, in typical probably self-deprecating style, going, well, you could be quite nice, but there's, you can look back and see the glint, you can see the twinkle in his eye there.
No, delighted with him. He's never really asked him anything.
No, Tom was at pains, seemingly to nurse him home in the ground.
Yeah, we were getting be very easy on him, and potentially it could be very nice.
Had he been showing you a lot at home prior to this?
Well, I've been pleased with him. I haven't really galloped him. I mean, he was just ready for a race. He'll come on a lot from that, and he has got good engagements. So let's hope he goes the right way.
Henry and Frankel, they're indelibly linked, aren't they? I think that they probably defined each other in a funny sort of way. And would he have been a good racehorse somewhere else? Absolutely, surely. But would he have been what he really became? Possibly not.
The season that was 2 from August through October, only 2 months, an 8-week period or whatever, did it live up to expectation? Because you were dreaming big. He won a Group 1, he was unbeaten at 2. Was everything Frankel achieved in that small period what you thought he would?
Everything that Prince Carly wanted to do was aimed at classic racing, and so the Guineas and the Derby and everything sort of came into all sorts of calculations.
That Guineas in 2011, in your head, when you'd mapped it out, say the night before, the morning of, did it ever look quite like it actually became and in reality was?
You can tell I'm not going to lie.
They're off. They're racing then, and Dubarby Gold is slowly away from the gates for this Kipco 2000 Guineas. Frankel got out well. At halfway, Frankel is almost 10 lengths clear. They're heading then down towards the bushes now. Frankel continues to be in a massive lead to Casamento in second place, and then rerouted behind that is Parfort. Dubarby Gold coming from the back of the field, but at the bushes, Frankel is 15 lengths clear. Frankel is heading down towards the last quarter mile. He's making every yard of the running here. Dubarby Gold and Native Khan have moved into second and third places. Parfort is behind in third place, into the dip. Frankel continues to be in front. He's 6 or 7 lengths clear. Dubarby Gold is coming to second. Native Khan in third position, inside the last furlong. A horse who is pure class. Frankel has destroyed them from halfway. An amazing performance, and Frankel heads towards the line to make every single yard in the Guineas and win it well.
The original plan has been quite well documented, but obviously Frankel was drawn 1 and rerouted, who was going to make the pace, was drawn 13.
Yeah.
And the original idea was that rerouted would go off at a great pace, and Frankel would slot in behind him and go on from there. And as it happened, when they were drawn like that, short of probably concertinaing the whole field, the plan changed. And I remember Henry saying to Tom, just do your own thing. Be happy, just do your own thing.
Jockeys in the race said they thought he was the pacemaker. Did you at any point have to, readjust the binoculars?
There's always a slight moment of panic, isn't there?
I bet.
and I'm colourblind, so pink and green and not quite in terms of the caps weren't till. But I luckily cross noseband got me out of trouble. Again, it was that extraordinary stride that he had, really, that had them flat out. I mean, it was almost a surreal experience.
The famous Ian Bartlett call, it's 15 lengths clear at the bushes.
Yeah.
It goes down in legend, it goes down in folklore, and I remember afterwards as well. This will link in, of course, to your role and Prince Khalid and the quest, the dream of classic winners, the first classic that there is for many, one of the most important. And Sir Henry was watching on the big screen as Newmarket Racecourse rolled out Bolkonsky and Wallow. You know, there was a renaissance, there was a real nostalgia, there was a special element to all of that day, wasn't there?
I think that was the first time he really hit the big time, in terms of outside consciousness. The racing world had a pretty good idea who he was and where he was, but I think suddenly you've got a sort of Muhammad Ali type character who was not only said he was the best, but was the best. And I think when you had that momentum that he had, I think you really you fired up people's interests.
From that moment onwards, was the rest of that 3-year-old year the journey, the roller coaster, whatever you want to call it, that it looked like it was?
Many parts were hugely enjoyable.
Many.
Many. There's always the apprehension that something might go wrong. There's always the apprehension. I mean, horse racing, you know, if you've watched the average, a lot of races, something does go wrong for something.
There's the Royal Ascot success, which was a bit of a fright, maybe in the closing stages. There was the Sussex Stakes, the Duel on the Downs of Camford Cliffs, the 2 horses, different ages, come together.
He sort of wanted to go on himself. I thought maybe there's someone in my quarters, but I cracked on with it. I tried to have a glance at the big screen, but there was a flag or something blocking it, so come on, Frankel, away we go.
Let's do it ourselves. And he took an age to pull up as well. He's just so exuberant.
Thank God there was a barrier down the end. Made my job easy.
And then there was a really important day for the landscape of British racing, the first ever Kipco British Champions Day, and you want to give weight to that occasion, and Frankel did that, didn't he?
Frankel now in full cry, big celebration, and Immortal Verse, 2 quality horses are made to look mere mortals as Frankel remains unbeaten and wins the QE2.
When he won the QE2 as a 3-year-old, he really stamped himself and finished off the year in really good style.
So then Frankel at 2 and all the way through 3. He was a showstopper, a brilliant performer on the track, and the legend was building, so much so that anticipation was palpable going into his 4-year-old year. But come the spring of 2012, a rumour as to his well-being was doing the rounds.
He banged himself, he banged the inside of his tendon, and Henry rang up and said he's banged his tendon around. And sometimes with Henry, he could play down a broken leg practically. But so I was a little bit concerned. He said, "I've seen plenty of tendons, and this is not a tendon, i.e. a bowed tendon." So we announced it. This, I think, was something like on the Wednesday or Thursday of the Grand National, and then the media frenzy, or the social media frenzy as it then was, sort of took over, and everyone, and at the time I said, we're not going to know until next week, probably Tuesday, when we rescan him, whether it's because the blood, and I didn't want to be dramatic, because if you start saying blood, they think blood is
a trigger word, isn't it?
Is sort of pouring out of his leg. It's a tiny little blood corpuscles that cloud the scan, so you could see the tendon fibres clearly, and whether there'd been damage there or not. And you couldn't do that until it had settled down. And so By the time it got to sort of Grand National, and it was an emotional day at the Grand National as well, and the thought that there was a thought that Frankel may be retired or may have run his last race and everything like that, and so it sort of really, and it was quite weird because one or two people came up to me at the Grand National and said, "I'm so sorry to hear about Frankel." And I said, "I thought they meant just the bang," and they said, I said, "No, that's fine. He's fine now." And then someone else, and then a great mate came up and said, I hear Frankel's been retired." And I went, "Oh." And then I rang up Henry, who was, I think he was at Lingfield, and I said, "Have you said anything?" He said, "Of course not." And so I then ran out Prince Khalid in a sort of panic, saying, he said, "I hear Frankel's retired." I said, "Well," I said, "the three people who ought to know and don't know anything about it." So I think we can safely say that it's not, and we will not know until
fake news.
The scan. It was fake news, and then the scan came, and it was clear, which was a mighty relief.
He obviously hit his tendon quite badly. There was a lot of hemorrhaging and everything, and I was always very hopeful because it just didn't feel like a normal tendon, but you never know. And he was scanned this morning very thoroughly and everything, and everything with his sheath and his tendon is fine. I've had him sort of walking and trotting. Everything seems to settle down, and we'll resume work and we'll feel our way.
And then the ball really got rolling at 4.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I mean he was supreme and superior at every stage of the game.
There was that day at Royal Ascot where the first race of the entire Royal meeting, Tom Queally on Frankel, it was almost like watching on was the day that he just, handbrake off. Not that it was ever on, of course, but off you go. Just go and show this crowd what you can really do.
Prince Khalid didn't particularly relish the sort of cosy win at all, but he settled really well that day. And when Tom set him alight about 2 out, just to go on and just win by 11 lengths. The times will nearly bear me out. He could have won a King's Stand as well. There was a huge Australian contingent that came over for Black Caviar, and they were absolutely their jaws were. I was talking to an Aussie the other day, and he said, "We came over to see Black Caviar, and then we see this thundering champion," and so that really, again, catapulted him further.
The Lockinge, the Queen Anne, the Sussex Stakes. Don't get me wrong, he went off 20s on, as we saw in the Sussex Stakes. These are the prestige mile races.
This is the moment. This is what makes him such a great racehorse. An instant turn of foot, and horses that are top class in their own right are made to look pedestrian. Frankel dismisses his rivals with contempt. 12 out of 12, a second Kipco Sussex Stakes, and 8 Group 1.
And Queally, he points to the horse. He wants to deflect the credit from himself and allow this extraordinary racehorse to soak it all up. He has hardly turned a hair. It is just extraordinary what he is capable of doing.
There's that growing consensus that people want to see him step up in trip, and so how much deliberation went into York in August?
I think it was always part of the plan. The Juddmonte was Prince Khalid's flagship race. Yeah. He's sponsored it for in those days over 20 years, and it was something that had eluded him up until Twice Over beat Midday, the previous.
That was an epic year.
That again was extraordinary. People still come up to me now on York Racecourse and say, "Do you?" And I know exactly what they're going to say. And when York usually has bumper crowds, it's the bus park that's full. And this day it was the car parks. Everyone suddenly got into their cars and said, "I'm going to see this horse."
And on the day, William Darby said, subsequent to that, he said that, very often at the races, even when it's a very big crowd, you'll still, even if it's a big race, people will be in the bars and the restaurants eating, drinking, whatever, might have it on the TV. He said there was an exodus from within the ground. Everybody wanted to go out and see that race and see that horse.
The parade ring was solid full, almost the entire day.
They line every rail here on the Knavesmire, from the 10.5 furlong start to the finishing line, where most of us expect Frankel to be many lengths in front of his rivals. Come on, Frankel, do it for us, make it special, and give Sir Henry the special day that he deserves and that the sport is expecting. Here it is, the Juddmonte International. This is Stuart Machin.
That's it. Hope you're ready for this. They're off. And Frankel just missed half a beat, perhaps by design, restrained Queally the pink cap.
Look at the horses he beat that day. The quality, the combined Group 1s, the levels that these horses achieve, your Fars and St Nicholas Abbeys and so on. There's that wonderful tracking shot, I think it's from the inside, where they're going, you know, good horses are going, being pushed, being asked, and your fellow is just cruising. It looked like he was gliding on a magic carpet.
Yeah, Tom, I mean, just brought him round up on the stand side rail and almost in sort of cruise control, and then gave him a few nudges and off he went. I mean, the crowd just, I never forget the roar as it just swept through. It was extraordinary.
Robin Hood, followed by Windsor Palace, both ridden along, trying to stay in front as long as they can. Frankel is drawn away towards the extreme left, tracking St Nicholas Abbey, who's under a patient ride from Joseph O'Brien. Down inside the three they come, and now the race develops. Frankel breezes up on the near side with Queally sitting motionless, and here he goes down to the final two into unknown territory. Fahar is taking his effort in the centre. St Nicholas Abbey a length and a half to make up, but Frankel, Queally shakes the reins. The response is immediate, down to the last furlong, and Frankel bounds clear, and this is all over. Frankel scorching away this perfect mix of poetry and destruction, this glory of rhythm, power and majesty. The undisputed champion of the world, Frankel, wins the Juddmonte International.
You've seen it, now try and believe it. Frankel passes his toughest test with barely a hair turned, and takes his 13th consecutive race, remains unbeaten, and wins the Juddmonte International. For Prince Khaled Abdullah, for Sir Henry Cecil, for Tom Queally. Oh my, this horse just makes you realise that the impossible is achievable. Frankel wins again, and does so in simply devastating fashion. Never at any stage of the Juddmonte International did we think, here we are, it's 1972 all over again in the defeat of a great racehorse. All we thought was, bring it on, pour salt into the wound of your toiling rivals, and give us something to make us applaud until the small hours. And the peals of applause will ring round the Knavesmire for many, many minutes.
Going to York, I think, was certainly, it was everything that everything he was bred for, really.
Because he was stepping up in trip. It is set against the backdrop of a huge expectant crowd seeing him, and seeing Sir Henry for the first time since, am I right, the Queen Anne was the last time we'd seen him on track with Frankel.
Yeah.
And of course the treatment he'd had to go through had clearly left its mark on him.
Your appreciation please for Sir Henry Cecil.
Anyone who saw him was really quite shocked. But Prince Khaled told me to tell Henry that he didn't need to come if he didn't want to. You know, and Henry, I can still hear his voice saying, "I am coming," and that was the end of the conversation. It was an extraordinary day. The 22nd of August 2012.
Is that your best day on the racetrack?
Oh yeah, by some way.
And the end of the Frankel racing career, that wasn't without its moments of worry. Ascot, October.
That it had been raining.
Just a bit.
Just a bit, and then it continued to rain, and then it rained a bit more. I remember walking the track before racing, And I was sort of greeted by a sort of press corps saying, "Is he going to run?" I said, "I don't know. We're going to look at the course." And then I went left-handed out onto the track and started past the mile to the mile and quarter start and down as you go down the hill into Swinley Bottom. I mean, Swinley Bottom was Swinley bottomless. It really was that day, and I thought, oh. And then as you walk round the old mile start and hit the rising ground, it began to get a little bit better. I had to call Henry and Prince Khalid on the way because I knew by the time I got to the winning post that I was going to have to answer the question again. And Prince Khalid said, "Is Henry happy?" And I said, on what I've told him, he's happy. And Henry, I think, was pretty much wanting to run whatever, but there was an element that, you know, if it had just been too dangerous, we wouldn't have risked it.
Yeah, of course. And we said earlier there was no plan B, really.
There wasn't a plan B in terms of where else you were going to go.
Yeah.
Really, because the Breeders' Cup was back to the Classic was back to dirt then.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't have been a very viable alternative.
And that last race, he wasn't particularly lightening out the stalls.
No.
Tom Queally and Frankel enter the stalls. They've had some fantastic times together. Will this be the ultimate?
10 furlongs, they're off and racing. Frankel slow away, has dwelt and just required pushing into the bridle for the early stages, and as such, he's lost the Bullet Train at the front, who's having a look round Ian Mongan to see where Frankel is, and now Tom Queally faces a dilemma.
And courage, class, that bit of brilliance and X factor, presumably, that very few others can ever touch, got him through.
And he beat the two best horses in Europe at
the time. Cirrus de Zegler was on his mettle, he was on his ground, he was the reigning title holder.
Yeah.
Cirrus de Zegler up the side of the course, leads. Bullet Train just trying to make himself a nuisance up the inside once more and trying to move to the rails. In third place is Nathaniel. Frankel keeping his powder dry.
You know, so many people have come up to me and said, I took my children there. And that is what we're trying to sell, things that people might not see in a lifetime.
Frankel pulls towards the outside, the pink cap, Tom Queally beginning to try and close down. Cirrus de Zegler from Nathaniel. Frankel keeping closer, still being held together by Tom Queally. Cirrus de Zegler, Frankel moves alongside. Queally's finger poised on the button for one final electric burst. Frankel bidding to settle it. Cirrus de Zegler is making a fight of it on the far side. Frankel extends. Cirrus de Zegler is a worthy adversary, but up towards the line. All covered, all round, all victory. Frankel won the Champion Stakes and lives up to the title. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be a parade of honour that may last a little while. Many of you clustering against the rails to see at first hand what may be the final celebration for Frankel. Tom Queally in the saddle in the colours of Khalid Abdullah. Masterfully handled by Sir Henry Cecil. It will be a long while before we see his like again. Ladies and gentlemen, Frankel, the champion on Champions Day.